Thank you very much, and thank you to the other speakers who were kind enough to mention me. Um, I think everything that was relating to numbers and studies and statistics and things like that have been covered, so I'm going to stick to just giving you all my personal testimony of what it's like to be treated at a gender clinic and to undergo conversion therapy and a complete absence of any kind of exploratory talk therapy. So a little bit of background. Um, what I would come to think of as my gender dysphoria began to develop in my teens as a result of repeated, I'll say, unwanted experiences, which did leave me with quite a bit of trauma. By the time I was in my late teens, I was severely depressed. I was struggling with an alcohol problem, as well as various other issues. So I wasn't very mentally well. And this was something that my doctors were very well aware of, including one breakdown that I had resulting in a brief stint on a psychiatric ward. So my medical file was very clear that I had a lot of issues. But prior to the age of about 21 or 22, I had never mentioned a desire to transition. I'd never mentioned having gender dysphoria. But after finding transition related content online, I truly came to believe that this was the condition that I had. And so I self referred to a gender clinic, the Sandyford Gender Clinic in Glasgow. There was a 1 year waiting period, during which time there was no mandatory counselling or therapy. So for that year, I didn't receive any kind of treatment. Um, and my mental health dramatically declined. And in fact, my stay on the psychiatric ward was mere months prior to my first appointment at the gender clinic. And so when I went to the gender clinic, they had access to my medical files. So they were aware of the breakdowns, they were aware of all the problems that I had, but it was not discussed, it was not explored. And I think we spoke about my hospitalization and suicidal ideation in all of a 3 minute exchange. The rest of it was ticking off a checklist. You know, have you done your lived experience? And if, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically cross-dressing. That's what they say it means to live as the opposite sex. So I cut my hair and I bound my chest and I wore men's clothes. And that was appropriate enough to the gender clinic to deem that I had lived as a man and truly wanted to be one. So without any kind of exploratory talk therapy, a couple of months after my first appointment, I was greenlit and prescribed testosterone. Now, my testosterone was quite strong. It was called Sustanin 250, and I injected it intramuscularly every 3 weeks for the next 4.5 years. And you can hear the effect it's had on my voice. It had a lot of very dramatic, irreversible, unfortunately for me, changes on my body. And in 2017, the clinic referred me for a double mastectomy, which I underwent as well. So I then stopped going to the gender clinic after getting the double mastectomy, and they never contacted me again, which was quite dangerous considering that I needed to have regular blood work because of the risks that are associated with taking cross-sex hormones. Apparently they just forgot to get back in contact with me. So when I started to experience transition regret in 2018, the primary reason was that I realized what I called my gender dysphoria and what had been diagnosed by the clinic as gender dysphoria was actually a combination of various other issues and factors that had never been addressed. And I made peace with the fact that I, like many other people, was using transition as a form of escapism for other comorbidities. This story isn't unique to me. There was recently a survey done by a project called Post Trans, which is run by detransitioned women, and 237 detransitioned people responded to that survey, and 70% of them said the reason they detransitioned was because they realized that their gender dysphoria was related to something else. So I'm not the only one who will say that it was a massive failure on the part of my clinic to affirm me and not challenge me. And I do believe that had I been given exploratory talk therapy and addressed all the issues that I was running from, I wouldn't have transitioned. I mean, I'm only 30 years old and I will live the rest of my life with permanent, irreversible, and in some instances, damaging changes to my body because my gender clinic were so afraid of being branded transphobic that they didn't challenge or question or investigate the roots of my dysphoria. And so I'm giving this testimony to you now to basically emphasize what the other speakers have said, and that is if exploratory talk therapy is deemed conversion therapy, it's not a kindness and it will result in countless others like myself who have been harmed by the people who were supposed to do no harm. Thank you.